Britain is no longer just divided, it's under siege from within. In a shocking turn of events that sent tremors through Westminster and Buckingham Palace alike, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has unleashed a wave of arrests, targeting farmers and voters who dared to speak out against his government's draconian policies. And now, for the first time in his reign, King Charles has flipped out behind closed doors, furious at what he's calling a betrayal of the British people. From peaceful protesters being dragged away in handcuffs, to ordinary citizens detained for simply questioning authority, this is no longer politics as usual. This is the beginning of something far darker, and the king knows it. The storm started quietly, but it escalated with lightning speed. At first, it was just murmurs in farming communities about Labour's new inheritance tax targeting agricultural land. Then came the outrage. Decades-old family farms were suddenly being valued beyond recognition, with grieving families forced to sell land just to cover monstrous tax bills. Rural Britain, already battered by energy hikes and market instability, erupted in fury. What was once quiet countryside soon turned into a battlefield of resistance. Kent, Norfolk, Yorkshire, tractors blocked motorways, bonfires were lit at field edges, and entire communities set up peaceful camps to defy what they called a tax on survival. Instead of listening, Keir Starmer's government sent in the police. But not just ordinary patrols, riot squads. Armed with shields, tear gas, and arrest quotas, officers stormed peaceful protest camps and community halls. Farmers holding signs were handcuffed in front of their children. Elders refusing to leave their ancestral land were forcibly removed. Social media exploded with footage of these brutal arrests, showing not hardened criminals, but tearful families, teenage volunteers, and pensioners being thrown into police vans. And it didn't end there. Labour's crackdown widened beyond farmland. Town hall meetings turned tense across the country, as angry constituents dared to question Labour MPs about tax hikes, energy chaos, and crumbling public services. But instead of getting answers, many were met with force. Security dragged out voters mid-question. Some were arrested on the spot, accused of public order offences or non-compliance. Non-compliance with what? With speaking too loudly? With daring to challenge authority? The message was chilling and clear. Dissent will not be tolerated. And that's when the palace was pulled into the chaos. According to sources close to Buckingham Palace, King Charles was briefed on the escalating unrest in a closed-door session, complete with footage from Kent and Yorkshire. What he saw reportedly left him stunned. One particular video, showing police dragging away a disabled veteran from a protest site, allegedly sent the king into a rare fit of rage. Slamming his fist on the table, Charles reportedly declared, "This is not democracy. This is tyranny in plain sight." Multiple insiders claim the king made an urgent private call to the Prime Minister later that evening, and it wasn't a calm, routine call. One royal aide reportedly overheard the king warning, "You are testing the foundations of this nation. The people are losing trust, and once that's gone, it cannot be rebuilt." This wasn't just royal posturing. This was the King of England sounding the alarm that Starmer's Britain was becoming something unrecognisable, something dangerous. Yet in typical fashion, Labour officials tried to downplay the backlash. Government spokespeople dismissed the arrests as lawful enforcement of public order and mocked protesters as agitators trying to destabilise unity. But no one was buying it anymore. Reform UK leaders slammed the government's response as undemocratic thuggery, and support for Starmer began collapsing in real time. Meanwhile, new reports flooded in. In Lincolnshire, a mother of 3 was arrested at a community meeting for obstructing a government representative after asking how she could afford heating this winter. In Essex, a farmer's entire livestock was seized after he refused to pay a disputed tax bill. And in Cornwall, local police were caught on camera telling a group of young protesters, "You're not allowed to question government policy here. This isn't a debate. These aren't an isolated incidents. This is the new face of Labour's Britain, and the public is enraged." What's unfolding now in the UK is not just political turbulence. It's a crisis of democracy, identity, and leadership. As Starmer tightens his grip and doubles down on authoritarian tactics, the cracks within the establishment are no longer just visible. They're gaping. Protests are no longer limited to the farmlands or quiet town halls. They've erupted into city centres, spreading through London, Birmingham, Manchester, and beyond. What began as resistance to unfair taxes and oppressive laws has evolved into a nationwide cry for freedom and accountability. People are not just protesting policies, they are rejecting an entire system that treats dissent as disloyalty and opposition as criminality. Reports now confirm that more than 700 individuals have been detained in just the past 3 weeks under Starmer's so-called emergency stability measures. These broad and vaguely defined rules allow police to arrest anyone they suspect of organising unrest or disseminating anti-government propaganda. What this means in practice is terrifying. Posting a critical video on social media, sharing a meme, attending a local council meeting, or simply being present at a protest can result in immediate arrest, with no trial in sight. Detainees are being held in temporary detention facilities hastily set up in converted warehouses and unused military barracks, far from media scrutiny and legal aid. Families are being left without answers, and legal experts have begun to sound alarms over the complete erosion of habeas corpus. Behind closed doors, pressure on King Charles is intensifying. While the monarch is constitutionally limited in power, he is also the symbolic guardian of national unity and moral balance. He now finds himself walking a dangerous tightrope between a duty to remain politically neutral and a moral obligation to speak up against a government many believe has lost its legitimacy. Insiders suggest the king is considering an unprecedented public address, not to declare war on the government, but to restore calm, dignity, and accountability in the face of political overreach. The last time a British monarch directly addressed political crisis on this scale was during the abdication crisis of 1936. If King Charles goes forward with this, it will send a historic shockwave across the nation and signal just how grave this situation has become. Meanwhile, Starmer's administration appears increasingly isolated. Even members of the Labour Party are reportedly questioning the direction of the government behind the scenes. A leaked memo from a senior Labour strategist reveals internal panic over collapsing poll numbers, with one line stating bluntly, "We are bleeding working-class support by the hour." Reform UK, once dismissed as a fringe movement, is now gaining serious momentum. Membership has surged by 300% in 1 month. Local chapters are springing up across the country, organising peaceful resistance movements, publishing exposés and legally challenging Labour's oppressive decrees. Nigel Farage, once considered a political outsider, is being hailed as a voice of the people, with his fiery speeches attracting tens of thousands both online and in person. The international community is also taking notice. Human rights groups in Europe and North America have issued statements condemning the UK government's handling of protesters and the restriction of civil liberties. The United Nations Human Rights Council has reportedly requested a formal explanation from the UK ambassador regarding the arbitrary detentions of peaceful civilians. European media outlets are now referring to the UK as a state in democratic regression, while some diplomats have quietly begun suggesting sanctions or trade re-evaluations if Labour's authoritarian trend continues. But Starmer's response to all of this? Silence on accountability and threats of even more control. During a recent appearance at a press conference in Glasgow, Starmer was asked directly about the arrests of voters and the King's reported reaction. He dismissed the questions as theatrics and warned that those who seek to destabilise our unity from within will be met with firm action. His words were calm, but the underlying message was clear. Any and all resistance will be crushed. And it's not just political opponents who are in the crosshairs. Journalists who report critically on the crackdown have started facing intense pressure. Multiple reporters from independent outlets have come forward anonymously, stating they've received government warnings about publishing stories that could inflame unrest. Editors have allegedly been contacted by government liaisons, reminding them of national stability obligations under revised media guidelines, passed quietly through Parliament last May. Editors have allegedly been contacted by government liaisons, reminding them of national stability obligations under revised media guidelines, passed quietly through Parliament last month. These veiled threats have prompted some media houses to pull coverage entirely, fearing legal or financial retaliation. As a result, public trust in the mainstream press has plummeted, with millions turning to independent digital creators, podcasts, and underground publications to get uncensored news. Across Britain, the tension is now tangible. Communities are split between fear and fury. Neighbours whisper about being watched. Schools are reportedly holding emergency sessions to advise students on political neutrality. Churches, which once served as sanctuaries, are now offering space for legal aid and community organising. Local councils are under immense strain, caught between enforcing Labour's directives and maintaining public trust. The very institutions that form the backbone of British society are beginning to buckle under the weight of political extremism from above. The people, however, are not giving up. Despite the arrests, the threats, and the chilling atmosphere, a defiant spirit is spreading. "We are not criminals, we are citizens," reads a banner, now seen at protests from Cornwall to Aberdeen. Petitions demanding the repeal of Labour's new laws have gained over 4 million signatures in under a month. Peaceful marches, silent vigils, and massive online campaigns continue to push forward, reminding the government that power ultimately belongs to the people. As this showdown intensifies, one question now echoes across the country. How much longer can Starmer maintain this iron grip before the entire system snaps under pressure? This is not just about policies or party politics anymore. This is about the soul of Britain. As Britain descends further into crisis, the fragile facade of democratic civility has all but shattered. What once seemed unthinkable is now unfolding in broad daylight. The United Kingdom, once a proud model of liberty, fairness, and parliamentary strength, is being described by foreign observers as a nation spiralling toward autocracy. Keir Starmer's grip on power, rather than stabilising a weary population, is accelerating a dangerous unravelling of the very structures that uphold British democracy. While the official line from Downing Street insists this is about preserving order, the reality on the ground tells a darker story, one of mass surveillance, censorship, and a growing climate of fear. In recent weeks, Labour's legislative engine has gone into overdrive. In addition to the public order laws and surveillance measures already in place, Parliament has now pushed through the Digital Harmony Act, a sweeping bill that grants the government the power to monitor private communications, remove digital content deemed subversive, and penalise platforms that fail to comply. The language of the bill is intentionally vague, with terms like destabilising narratives and digital disorder left open to interpretation by government-appointed regulators. Critics warn that this act paves the way for the complete silencing of online dissent, with some calling it the most intrusive piece of legislation in modern British history. Already, its effects are being felt. Independent content creators who have reported on police brutality, tax protests, or government overreach have found their videos taken down, their channels demonetised, and in some cases, their personal bank accounts frozen. Tech companies, under threat of massive fines, are preemptively censoring posts and accounts suspected of spreading government-critical material. WhatsApp groups used by farmers to coordinate peaceful protest routes have reportedly been infiltrated, shut down, or redirected. Emails flagged with political keywords are being delayed or outright blocked by major service providers. It's no longer paranoia, it's policy. At the same time, public trust in state institutions is evaporating. The judiciary, once regarded as an independent bastion of fairness, is now being accused of quietly aligning with Starmer's administration. In a series of recent rulings, judges have upheld the legality of mass detentions and police interventions, citing national interest. Legal scholars and former judges are beginning to break ranks, publishing open letters warning of irreversible damage to the legal framework. The Bar Council has issued a rare public rebuke, urging the government to reconsider its aggressive posture towards civil liberties and reiterating the need for judicial independence. But Labour shows no sign of retreat. Starmer, flanked by his increasingly embattled inner circle, has launched a full-scale narrative war. Government press briefings now routinely accuse Reform UK, rural protest leaders, and even sympathetic journalists of attempting to dismantle the fabric of national unity. Posters have appeared in cities urging citizens to report anti-unity behaviour, a chilling echo of totalitarian regimes of the past. The message is unmistakable. You are either with the government or against the country, and yet, resistance grows. The Reform UK movement has evolved beyond party politics and is now being described as a national resistance front. Its leaders have rejected violence, insisting on a disciplined campaign of legal pressure, peaceful demonstration, and direct appeals to international institutions. Nigel Farage and other senior figures have repeatedly emphasised their commitment to non-violent civic action, but their resolve has only hardened in the face of Labour's escalating tyranny. With each unjust arrest, each silenced voice, the movement gains more supporters. People who had never voted in their lives are now organising town meetings. Former Labour voters are switching sides, disillusioned by the party's betrayal of working-class principles. Some Labour MPs, under immense pressure from constituents, have quietly begun defecting or abstaining from key votes, risking political exile in the process. King Charles, meanwhile, faces a historic dilemma. His silence is increasingly being interpreted as complicity. While royal aides continue to emphasise his private concerns, public opinion is shifting toward demanding open defiance. Millions have signed petitions urging the king to address the nation, dissolve Parliament under royal prerogative, or at the very least, denounce the government's actions with moral clarity. Constitutional scholars are debating the limits of the monarchy's ceremonial role in times of democratic collapse. Never in the modern era has the monarch been placed in such a precarious position, one in which his relevance and authority may hinge on a single speech. The pressure is mounting not just from within, but from abroad. The European Court of Human Rights has opened an inquiry into the UK's treatment of protesters. A bipartisan committee in the United States Congress has drafted a resolution condemning authoritarian practices by the British government and calling for the suspension of certain intelligence sharing agreements if civil liberties are not restored. Canadian, Australian, and Irish leaders have made veiled references to disturbing developments in their former colonial motherland. British embassies are reporting protests outside their doors. The world is watching, and Starmer's government is running out of places to hide. Meanwhile, inside Britain, local councils and regional governments are beginning to fracture. The Mayor of Greater Manchester has called for a full audit of Labour's emergency enforcement funding. In Wales, civil society groups have begun forming independent alliances to protect communities from what they call federal overreach. Scotland's First Minister has openly defied several new directives, stating that Scotland will not be ruled by fear or repression. Even within London, pockets of resistance are emerging, from clergy organising underground gatherings to law firms offering pro bono representation to those targeted by the regime. Everywhere, a quiet but growing defiance is taking hold. Britons from every walk of life are beginning to remember their history, not just of monarchy and empire, but of liberty, protest and justice. From the Chartists to the suffragettes, from World War II's stand against tyranny to the miners' strikes, this is a country built on the principle that power must answer to the people. And today, that principle is being revived in every village, every borough, and every brave voice speaking truth in defiance of fear. With each day, the stakes rise, and so does the resistance. This was today's critical update. Britain stands at a crossroads, between silence and defiance, between tyranny and freedom. What happens next will define a generation. At Britain Info, our mission is to cut through the noise, to bring you raw, unfiltered, and verified facts the mainstream won't touch. We are not here to push propaganda. We are here to expose it. If you believe in truth, if you believe in the right to speak, protest, and live free, then stand with us. Hit the like button to show your support. Share this video so the world sees what's really happening. Comment below with your thoughts. We read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe to Britain Info, because in these dark times, independent voices are more important than ever. Stay strong, stay informed, and above all, stay free.